The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digital,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digital TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Okay, good morning, our viewers. My name is Kanyeihmba, and we are on the Alternative Uganda social media page, that's Facebook, and also on Digitalk TV, as it has been every Wednesday from 11. We are with Justice Kanyeihmba to discuss constitutional matters, governance, rule of law, to mention it, but a few. We will begin straight away by asking Justice Kanyeihmba to say hello to the viewers.
Hello, viewers. I'm very happy to connect with you. Thank you, Munoman.
Thank you. As precise as we have heard him, we want to condole with the rest of the country about the demise of two big men in this country, for lack of another word. The first one was General Elly Tumwine, who is an NRA Bush War hero, and also Honorable Yona Kanyomozi. We will begin from there, Justice Kanyeihmba, for your any words, any comments about the two, beginning with General Elly Tumwine.
Well, personally and my family, we give deep condolences to the families of General Tumwine and Honorable Kanyomozi, both of whom I knew very intimately, and we often exchanged views on telephone. It is a sad day for Uganda that we lose one gallant and one administrator at the same time, or rather more or less the same week. But that is the way of God. May the Lord rest their souls in peace, and may their families be blessed, and we sympathize with them very deeply. Thank you.
Thank you too. Before we leave, in particular, General Elly Tumwine, I am not sure whether you followed the sequence of events on TV, especially when the president was also attacking people who, there is a section of people, definitely young people in particular, that are more or less jubilating his passing on, having said some time ago, had been quoted saying that police had a right to shoot and kill citizens in the event that they crossed a certain level of, in their demonstrations. What do you have to say, especially onto that, and as a living justice?
I used to communicate very regularly, and the general would eagerly receive my phone and talk until that incident happened where he is alleged to have said you should punish those who break the law or whatever. And ever since then, every call I made, he didn't answer. So obviously, once I used my daughter's phone and he answered. When he heard my voice, he was a very gallant man. Others who don't want to talk to me go away, but he didn't. Then I said, Elly, you promised to protect human rights in Uganda. You promised to fight whoever is violating those rights, even if they are ministers. What has happened? And then he said, George, these people, meaning protesters and human rights activists, are killing us. And for me, I have said they should be beaten with sticks and chiboko. They should be beaten with chiboko. What is the difference? Rather, isn't there a big difference between beating them and them killing our people? Then I said, but they are being killed on the orders of the government. It is the government which is violating human rights, not the protesters.
What did he say?
And he said, I disagree with you, George. But after that, when I wanted to continue, he didn't allow me to continue. So I'm not surprised
that
among so many admirers in Uganda, there are others who don't think he did well while he was minister in the government in Nalem. But otherwise, as a hero and a fighter, he's among the best we ever had. But it doesn't mean that if you praise somebody for a good thing, you should just ignore what mistakes they made. So I don't. I make a difference between what the brilliance he had and the mistakes he made.
Okay. Briefly about the humbleness, the conduct, that persona in Honorable Yona Kanyomozi. At least I know we were here.
It's very sad he's going so fast. Even now, I don't believe it, because only a few weeks ago, he was here, sitting there where you are sitting. And we were having a chat about the good old days, about what was wrong and right about our politics. He obviously was very, very complimentary about Obote and his government. I was critical and complimentary about Museveni and the NRM. He was not only a brilliant politician and very clever to that, but he was also a brave man, because when we were here discussing today's politics, somebody questioned, put a question to us. And I said, you answer the question. I have written a book called The Defeat of President Museveni in the War Against Corruption. He himself agrees. The Inspector General of Government agrees. The Inspector General of Police agrees. So you speak out. And Kanyeihmba instinctively, in the defense of that person, said, don't say anything, they will kill you.
Yeah, I remember.
And if you remember the interview, because you interviewed both of us, I said, don't be a coward.
Yeah, sure.
For doing that. But that was his nature, instinctively to jump to the defense of the person who is affected. Always. And I was very, very privileged that I was among the last well-known people to have a chat with him before he passed on.
In the same line, I want to ask your view about his consistency vis-a-vis most of the people when it comes to political prostitution. Today, one is in DP, tomorrow is becomes a chairman, like you called him the other day. But this gentleman has been consistent in his UPC. Do you think we still have such characters, apparently, that someone can insist and be
There is
consistent in the
one
party?
who I'm sorry to say is very gravely ill, and he's called Dr. James Wanyalale. James Wanyalale and Yona Kanyomozi were made from the same mold. They were not only brave, but during the Idi Amin time, Dr. Wanyale saved many Ugandans who were the subject of Amin's criticism and the killer machine. Wanyale did not hesitate to do so. Although he was a UPC, even when UPC made a mistake attacking Ugandans, Wanyale would definitely come to their support and defense. Kanyeihmba was the same. These are two rare species this country will miss terribly. We pray that Wanyalale will recover from his illness. He's
Wanyalale is one who is sick?
He's sick. Okay. He's gravely sick, definitely. And we pray that God in his infinite mercy will save his life.
If I may ask you, is it this, do you believe in that, do I call it a cheap talk, that in politics there is no permanent enemy, either a permanent friend, that for that case someone is entitled to being a political prostitute?
I think that question would be best answered by President Museveni. Museveni himself has, I think, on record saying that there are no permanent enemies or no permanent friends
in politics.
Let me tell you, his vice president was in another party before.
You mean the
prime minister? I don't know, but certainly the speaker today.
Yeah, sure.
And the deputy speaker Kanyeihmba
were both FDC.
FDC, and so they are now at the head of the NRM party. So we have clear evidence today
there is no permanent friend,
and exemplified by President Museveni that there are no permanent friends
or enemies
or permanent enemies to cap on that. The people who have opposed him for the presidency, including the late Bilaro, including Chiza Besigye, including Mbabazi, including Muntu, have been...
Including yourself. You have forgotten to mention yourself. You are one of...
I have not stood as a presidential candidate.
I mean, those who are against him now.
For me, I oppose him. I regret his tendencies to ignore the Constitution and human rights. Those are my two major issues I figure in. And anybody, no matter who they are, if they are human, I oppose them. Twice, when he violated the rights of people like Moses Ali and another UPC man, and jailed them when he was away in China. When I came back, it was against our agreement. I offered my resignation. But as I tell you, everybody, never offer a resignation unless it has got some positive result. I knew that if I resign, it would shake Museveni's government. And I knew he would be very reluctant to accept my resignation. And I was right therefore. He didn't. Instead, he released Honorable, what was his name? At one time he was minister. Yes, and Honorable Moses Ali. He released them. Do you know what happened? We paid a lot of compensation to both of them. He returned them to government, and as I speak now, he's still not only minister, but I think he's the first deputy prime minister, replacing my late friend, Kategaya.
And also I think, yeah, Kategaya, not Chirunda Chibejinja.
That's right.
Now, does that mean, in your view, that you subscribe to that theory that one can either today be with a specific party and tomorrow joins the other? So, in your view, you think is it?
Joining parties, I don't know. You see, I have always thought that the DP is in the clouds. And I cannot see myself. I am now a non-political member of any political party. I am not a member of a political party. I used to be a member of the NRM when it was a movement, not a party. But now it is a party, I am not a member of it. But I cannot see myself joining, moving from where I was. A movement is conk. And then somebody annoys me and I join DP. No way. So for me, that's why I call the recent
partnership, it's cooperation.
So-called partnership. By the way, I was listening yesterday to a program, and the DP members were asking that their president is lying. And in any case, he's no longer their president, because how can you be president fighting a party and you be a member of that party as a minister, cabinet minister? Secondly, there are things we didn't know about people. What is his name? Norman, Norbert Mao,
yes,
has said openly, when he was being sworn in or before that he has been lying to be a cabinet minister. How can you be dying to be a cabinet minister when you have the position of a potential president? It doesn't make sense. But what I wanted to honor Mao about is that even now, even when I called him uncomplimentarily a chairman, he answered my call. Even he saw my telephone call. Unlike the others, he answered it immediately. And we had a very lovely chat, humorous.
Okay.
He was not angry that I called him a chairman.
Yes. Okay, with Justice Kanyeihmba, we thought that this preamble would be fair enough to usher us into the real topic of discussion. And as having said that, I want to ask him, or remind him about the Punch magazine. You know, you promised the viewers that we would begin with the Punch magazine, with what it had, in line with what Amin was saying about Punch magazine in the UK at the time you were there.
Although I am not exactly sure, when both Museveni and the late Rule formed the Uganda cabinet, the majority of us were in exile. They got it. They got me from London. They got Kaira from America. They got Wakavaburo from rather Papua Guinea in South in Asia. They got Orono, so they not Orono. They for later to become a rather deputy prime minister. He was he had been our ambassador in Addis Ababa, but he went in exile, stayed there until we were in power. He came. We had people like the Reverend Kajumba, who we brought back. Most of our cabinet and the senior officers came from exile in the Museveni's first government, replacing Rule, and in Rule in particular, the government was there. That's why they put up money that each of us should receive $40,000. For me, I never received mine, as you read my book.
What happened?
Because I thought that I had come to serve my country and not to be paid a salary.
That is 1979?
79, yes.
You mean there is a bunch of people that shared
yes,
amount worth 40,000 USD
$40,000
at a time?
As a rehabilitation fee. And I'm not criticizing it. The government thought it was okay. But for me, I didn't receive it.
But prior to that,
I rejected it.
The Punch magazine had me wondering why.
So now, just before we took over power, most of us were in exile, as I'm telling you. Many Ugandans, some were in Tanzania, thousands in Kenya, thousands in Rwanda. Many of us were in Sudan. And Omini was seen in the middle of Uganda, empty. The country was empty, and he said, "Where is everybody?" He's waving his gun. "Where is everybody? Where has everybody gone?" That is what Punch
magazine did.
In London.
Okay, our viewers, yeah, we needed that as well, and then we can now cross direct to the constitutionalism in Uganda.
Right.
When I was reading somewhere, around 1962, May or thereabout, there was a delegation in Lancaster, and there were some resolutions that had been agreed upon, but before that, the Buganda delegation marched out in protest. In particular, it was about the lost counties. And as agreed, even when the Buganda delegation wasn't part of that resolution or that meeting in particular, they agreed that upon returning to Uganda and within their independence constitution, that after 2 years, the central government would organize a referendum to decide on whether or not the lost counties would stay as part of Buganda or part of Bunyoro. One of the most hurting concerns then were that the cultural tombs of the Bunyoro were in one of the lost counties.
Yes.
Baganda suggested that Bunyoro should nominate someone who will come and takes care of the tombs this side and also goes back. Obote asks Mutesa, the president, to have a referendum, which history says he was redundant, having believed that he would maybe lose, or Buganda would lose the lost counties. The executive prime minister goes ahead and organizes a referendum, and the lost counties voted that they join, they go back to Bunyoro. One asked, is it that that event is what caused the genesis of the constitutional abuses in this country? And the
No, it didn't. The seeds of the conflict had started right on independence. If you remember, the delegates in London had agreed that Parliament would appoint a prime minister who would be the political operator in Uganda, the most important. It had also said that there should be a ceremonial head of state. You remember? And that ceremonial head of state, the candidates would be kings or traditional rulers. It's one of the reasons that I had issue with Kabale people, because in relation to that provision, they appointed my uncle, known as John Bikangaga, traditional ruler of Kigezi. And I wrote a letter saying, why are you agreeing to be that? Little did I know that later at my age, later in my 50s, I would be very close to the Bwakabaka bwa Buganda and even campaign for Ronnie Mutebi to become king. Me from a very fierce Republican from Kigezi. But friendship can also do wonders. The Ronnie Mutebi of Buganda is a very close friend of mine as we speak. So he is the king of Bunyoro, Ruchabasaija. My, what we call Ubazina, but my brother-in-law, that is the father of my daughter-in-law, Catherine Katera, he invited me to join him privately. I was a judge. He said, please come and help me. And we argue for the kingdom of Bunyoro. So I didn't know he had told our client, the current king of Bunyoro. Because when I went to Hoima, sometime when I was a minister, the king called me and said, aren't you Professor Kanyeihmba? I said, yes. He said, I want to thank you for the work you did for my kingdom. Because he knew I supported his kingdom, so forth. When the king, rather the sister of the king of Toro, was getting married, they called me as a guest of honor. Princess Bagaya called me because she knew what I had done for that kingdom. Lastly, Prince Baliche, who was, shall we say, unusually crowned king of Ankole before he was chucked out, was a personal friend. We knew each other in London when he was first secretary in our commission in London. In fact, he had told me, remember, kingdoms had been abolished in Uganda by Obote. Yeah. And he told me for him, he will never be a king. He doesn't fancy it anyway, even if it was still existing. But he was the first one. Politically, you see, people change. He was the first one to attempt to be crowned when he had said he no longer wants it. So that is another story. What I am saying is that although I was a Republican, and I'm still a Republican from Kigezi, I loved the aura and the integrity of kings who existed only for the benefit of their subjects, except perhaps one or two in the old days, including Mwanga. And I have been connected with royalty ever since. I have also said, I put it in the Constitution. Remember, I was the chairman of the Legal and Drafting Committee of the 1995 Constitution. Benny Washer of Lango was my deputy when we made the Constitution of Uganda. And I wrote it there. And I was accepted, my proposal was accepted by every Ugandan who approves the Constitution. That a Ugandan Whether you are from Kigezi, Acholi, Karamoja, or West Nile, you are entitled to live wherever you wish in Uganda. Not to go back to Kazo, to be buried there when you die. Not for me to go to Kabale, but you are to be buried where you have lived. Those people I am with, including the Sheikh, the Amir, the LCs here, the Gomboza chief, are my people. So in order to fulfill that, I have left a pledge that if God ever calls me, my remains should be buried here, where we are. So normally if you hear, and I pray you will, that the Kanyeihmba is no more, don't go to Kabale. Don't even go to Chinaba, where I and Kahindu Tafie were born as cousins, and we are cousins. Don't go there. Don't go to UK, because my wife and the children, the grandchildren, will afford to come. If they wish, they don't have to, but if they wish, I have left enough money for them to come and attend my burial here in this compound.
Not in Kabale.
Not in Kabale.
That is...
the Kabaka knows, my neighbors all know. As a consequence, they also wanted to pay me back. Since I retired over 10 years ago, I have not practiced law, but I have given advice to all my neighbors, including the Sheikh, including the LCs. They come here for advice. I don't charge them. And for what I have done for Buganda and for this country, they have decided. I have a letter here. You may, they think Kanyeihmba is exaggerating. You may read it to your listeners. It says we have decided, as a result of his work he has done for us, and for his contribution to the development of Uganda, to call this land road Professor G.W. Kanyeihmba. So this land, this road, all the way to Kasia Lodge, to the top of the hill, is to be named as soon as possible. Kanyeihmba Foundation. There are, you see those trees which are blocking my door? They are on the road. They are not in the next door premises. So a police detective came here. He said, no, these we must cut. They are not supposed to be on the road. Nobody in the whole country plants a tree on the road. I was talking to to Dr. Hakana Rugunda, and they told me that in Zambia, where he used to work, a big tree fell on a bus, and some people were killed. Does Uganda want these trees to remain there uncontrolled and kill somebody? So what happened? The police from down here, our area, came, including the OC. Then another one came, because the police like me these days. They used to also. Came from the Central Police Station. And they both agreed that this tree, by this week, will come off. They will cut it. They don't even have to consult the owner, because it is on the road. But it is still there, because it seems some of them are being facilitated. And they say, you can't cut that tree. So for me, could you do me a favor? I'll pay for the expenses involved. Come and take me here. And you see that those trees on the road, not in the other compound or my compound, but on the road, are the one blocking my view. And
I
they don't help the person who built
them
there because he's down below those trees. They are not helping him, but he put them there to block my view.
okay. We will get into that.
So I am diverting.
Yeah. Sure.
Having said that, I also am going to write to him. So the deputy inspector of police, Kasigazi, and he sent somebody who came here, and he said, yes, these trees should come down. So you ask them even today, what are they still doing there? Thank you.
Okay. Our viewers, with Justice Kanyeihmba, briefly before you shared with us about the definitely that also connects with how society behaves with others, because good neighborhood, there should be some bit of agreement. If a tree is likely to endanger someone, so
no, but the
then
man
it is-
came there.
should-
I wanted to cut it. He came with a gun. He's got a bodyguard with a gun and threatened the workers. They run here like hell. They have not come back. So
Okay.
it is a criminal.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I'm going to ask Kasigazi, even when you are here, why are you doing here? There? To threaten somebody with a gun. Your police said they are going to check whether he's got a license. Up to now,
Up
they
to
have
now.
not come be. Is it in order under Uganda law that a citizen should threaten another armed with a pistol?
Okay, by the time we cross to the some bit of social behavior of your neighbors and the rest,
Yes.
you had said that the conflicts had begun slightly earlier than the referendum between in regards to the
Yes.
Yes. So I don't want to sound hypothetical. If you were in Obote's shoes at a time, what would you do? Remember, you have the executive powers, and by agreement and by the independence constitution, the Kabaka is ceremonial, just like any other leaders as agreed, and as you said, that the constitution had made the Kabaka a ceremonial president and gave the powers, executive powers to Obote. What would you have done if you were either or? If you were the Kabaka or if you were...
See, what Obote did was contrary to the independence constitution. My view, and I hold it very strongly, let the law play its part. So he should not have sacked the Binjiras, the Ngobis, the Magezis of this world. He should have listened to what was his name, the one who was a Buganda councillor but died, starting with the name O. Was he O? The brother of Martin Alike. He was a councillor of Buganda and of Parliament. Because Buganda and like what other people say are the most cosmopolitan and accepted these other tribes as their own if they are in Buganda. That one has already been forgotten. However, to say Ocheng. Daud Ocheng was the brother of Martin Alike, who is a very well-known, enterprising fellow in the country. And he's the one who moved the resolution of no confidence in Obote for stealing gold in Congo. Now, Obote could have easily proved that he was not involved in that theft and that Ocheng was wrong constitutionally and legally.
Okay. Now,
but instead of that, he went and arrested the MPs who have passed voted no confidence in him. When people pass no confidence, you sack them. That is constitutional. But you don't dismiss them or jail them That is unconstitutional. So what they did the unconstitutional by jailing Ivinjira,
Daudo Cheng.
Cheng, Ngobi, Magezi.
Others.
He did it wrong, yes.
I have this issue which has been moving a lot. Every when you people, seniors, talk about the abolition of cultural leaders here, you push it straight to Obote every now and again.
Yes.
But when Amin came in power in 1971, January 25th, he did not restore them, and that is more or less buried or covered, and no one wants to say, but look, it's not Obote alone, because it's like it was succeeded up to even when you returned and you were a minister in Lure's government, still that wasn't managed at a time. Don't you think all of you had abolished the cultural leaders, the kingdoms, copying from Obote? One.
Many people approved the abolition of monarchy because the majority of Ugandans and the Uganda counties, sub-counties, districts are known monarchical. And there has always been this view that the monarchies sack the people and they were brought there either by the grace of God or mysteriously, and humans don't understand that origin. So there has always been anti-movement. In Ankole, anti-movement. In Uganda,
Anti-monarchies.
Against monarchism. So it is an issue that divides the Ugandans forever. But we have to get somewhere. When the Kabaka was abolished in Buganda, there was unrest in that kingdom. And the Buganda is the biggest province. And if I may say so, most developed area of the country. I have written elsewhere in my book, The Constitution and the Governing of Uganda, and I have stated anybody who wants to govern Uganda must have the consent and the love of the Baganda. If you don't, then it's very difficult to keep peace and tranquility in the country. I have written that, having observed very carefully for so many years what has happened in Uganda. Therefore, the Uganda government is a federation. We federate with the Ankole, a former kingdom. We federate with Uganda, a very powerful traditional kingdom. We federate with Toro, a kingdom. You can't combine Toro with the Banyakigezi, who have always been independent, and ask them to kneel for the Kabaka. They will not, unless, of course, they are forced to do because they are in Buganda. You cannot force the Batwa of Ituri to obey people who only eat bananas and buro.
Millet,
Yes. So we are a federation. I was always against federation as a radical. But now I'm coming to the conclusion that federalism may be another alternative for Uganda to adopt. I'm saying may.
May.
However, the leader of the federal party
She was now a chairwoman also. Now
Yes. She loves dictatorship. When she was appointed minister by President Museveni, she jubilated and said, the savior has come to Uganda, long live Museveni. That kind of twisted political belief is with us also. Only the other day, the leader of DP, Norman Mao, Nobert Mao. Sorry to
I am not a
convince you with your name.
chairwoman, apparently.
Ran amok and became a chairman in the NRM. And they said, remember, he was the president of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
He said, for his life, he has always wanted to be a cabinet minister. What happened to his ambition to become president of Uganda? That is gone. So that's why I have written a book, and I wish anybody should read it. The unexpected happens in the part of Africa.
Okay, our viewers, we are breaking briefly for a minute or two. When we return, we shall ask Justice Kanyeihmba to differentiate for the viewers between presidential decrees and legal notices. Because when you came here in 1986 with your friend then, Museveni, not Tibuhaburwa, apparently. So then you had a person of Museveni. Now he's a shadow, like you put it in your new book. So you tell us why you led Uganda under a legal notice between 1986 to 1995 or thereabout when we got a constitution. Viewers, we're coming back.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Dig Talk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop, and smart TVs. As we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Okay, viewers, we are back, and when we are breaking for this break, if I may use that grammar, we agreed that on our return we would discuss the difference between legal notices and decrees. And I wanted to ask Justice Kanyeihmba, did you participate in the drafting of the legal notice number 1 of Museveni in 1986?
No, I didn't. When we finished Moshi, I drafted the Moshi Constitution of Exiles with the purpose of returning to Uganda and being governed by that constitution I drafted together with the late Ibinjina, the late Isiko of Teso, the late Magezi, and I think Sempewe was with us. I was the chairman, and we drafted the Moshi Constitution to govern Uganda when UNLF takes over. Then we governed under that constitution, because remember, they made me Minister of Justice. That is Rule. And we governed, and I controlled that constitution until we were overthrown by the military commission of
Paulo Muwanga
and the rest. I went in exile, not to come back until 86. And I really went to London eventually, having been imprisoned in Tanzania with the collaboration of the Tanzania government. So when I left, Amin took over power. Was it Amin? No, we removed the body.
You moved Amin.
So I should go a bit further, a bit earlier. Earlier, Amin had withdrawn, had overthrown Obote.
1971.
And when he did that, Amin governed by decree.
Yes.
Legal number, not number 1. I believe it was drafted by the late Ayumi, who was then Solicitor General. And when we overthrew Idi Amin, we abolished legal number of 1981 and established ours, which was our, in quote, constitution, legal notice number something of 79, when we overthrew Idi Amin. So ours became legal notice number 1. Legal notice justifies the overthrow of the government and the beginning of the new one which has overthrown it. That's what legal notice means. It really is, in loose quotes, the constitution of the new government, of the new regime. So that is what a legal notice is. A decree is what Amin did. He did this with his few friends, and they issued decree number 1, which is that it is directly the power of the president and his authority to issue that decree. And nobody else, or even if they are there, they are not known. It is the decision of the president, who has taken over power illegally and become president illegally. It is known as decree. As opposed to legal notice number 1, because that means it is a legal document. It was drafted and approved by a group of people, not one man. So a decree is a one-man business,
more or less.
Whereas a legal notice
is a smaller group also, not even...
It's a cabal, a small group, that's why.
If I may ask you again, so I mean, makes a legal notice number 1 of 1971, 25th, after taking power from Obote?
No, a decree.
A decree.
Because he's one man.
You had said he
We
began with
we don't know who guided him to publish.
So from point 1 he began with a decree.
He may have asked some lawyers, we don't know them. He may ask, so because it was declared the president issues the following decree. So we regard it as a one-man decision because we don't know who else helped him to draft it.
So that
he must have been helped.
So that means,
but they are constitutional unknown.
When it moves from a decree with either one man or very, very, very few clique, a smaller clique of people, and it transits into a legal notice number 1, there is some bit of a reasonable number.
Yes.
Later alone to a constitution where now members of parliament now come on board and...
You got it. Yes, that's right.
Question.
If it is an act of parliament, then it is all members of parliament of the majority.
On behalf of the citizens.
But if it is a decree, it is a few individual who support the system that has come in place, but they consult. And usually they involve a lawyer.
Okay, let me ask you, on behalf of our viewers, what makes it sound or be named legal notice number 1? Is there a legal notice number 2, legal notice number 20?
No. Legal number 1 is, in quotes, the constitution of the new order.
Immediately, as soon as they take power.
It's like we made a constitution, or what they made the constitution in 1967. Then when Amin came in 71 or whatever, he abolished that constitution and governed by decree.
For 8 years.
Yes. And then when a group of people, like we were in Moshi, in exile, we joined together. There were lawyers like the late Stephen Asiko of Teso. There was, I believe, Justice Mr. Magezi. We had a judge called Oteng, the late Oteng. We were all together. We put our legal minds together, and we helped
make the Moshi constitution.
No, after the motion, we helped Rude issue legal notice number 1 because it was legal. It was made by lawyers and the judge, so it became legal number 1 because it was legal. It was made by lawyers.
So, in your view, this is...
But we don't know who helped Amin. He was not a law, it was a decree.
Okay. This will rather sound a political question. In the event that one has taken power and doesn't issue a legal notice, what type of government is that? Take power?
Then there is no government. That is why even dictators, despots, kings, and all sorts of need some
starting guidelines or
guidelines. That's right. And if it is just one man, it is. When I say one man, in reality, his supporters are there.
Very few of them close themselves in a room.
Yeah, but because we don't know them, we call it a decree, one man decree. Then the other one, a group of people, mainly lawyers and the leader, the political leader, consult together, consult the leader, and then they say, we are making legal notice number so and so.
Did you, as a senior counsel in this country, and definitely known by your publications and what you have done in regards to developing Uganda's law, did you have an opportunity to go through the legal notice number 1? Because you said by the time Mr. Museveni and a few others worked on it, you weren't in the country, you were called later to come and serve the country. Did you participate? Did you rather have...
no, I wasn't here physically when they brought legal notice number 1.
1986.
But there were other lawyers. Even Njira is a famous lawyer. They were Justice Mulenga
Was part of
was
the
here.
draftsmen.
He was invited. Various other judges, rather justices, lawyers, maybe 6 of them or more. They put their heads together and made legal notice number 1. Yeah.
I want to repeat the question. Did you have an opportunity to go through the legal notice number 1 when you came here, and perhaps did you find any loopholes within the same legal notice, or you were satisfied with what your colleagues had put on paper at the time?
No, I was satisfied, because the main thing is to legitimize the ruling power. By the way, just to inform you, when we were in the Constituent Assembly, I was the chairman of the Legal and Drafting Committee. 20 members were also, 21, were also legal delegates. They included people like Ben Watcher, who became my deputy when making the Uganda Constitution of 1995. There were former registrars who are lawyers initially. There were people like Nabudeli in CA. There were people like what is her name? Like Matende. She was a lawyer. She's now a doctor of laws. There were people like Ziwa, the former chairperson of the East African community.
Margaret Ziwa.
Margaret Ziwa, now Mrs. Pinto. Pinto, she remarried again, and her husband is Mr. Pinto, the fiery Ugandan, who happened to have one of the parents as an Indian. He's more Ugandan, if you scratch below his head, than any other nationality. He's very fierce, patriotic, and I like him.
So, how long should a legal notice live? Because when you had, one would ask and wonder, why did you transit from a legal notice number 1 and then you lead that legal and drafts committee, move around the country, constitutional commission, and the rest? Because one would wonder, couldn't the same notice stay there?
This is the risk of governing by legal notice. When you rule by legal notice, everybody expects you to govern forever until you die. So you can only be removed by another coup, a bullet, assassination.
So ideally, it has to be there. It must live shorter for the establishment to organize elections or what?
No, decrees.
I mean the legal notice.
They are limited.
The decrees, yes.
And those who have taken power want to stay there forever.
Then the legal notice?
Legal notice, you see, legal notice, ours was subjected to democracy. So people are allowed to democracy. Do you want to see this government? No. Museveni is still president, but I have written we should ask him to retire now. With decree, you don't do that. So the only answer is assassination or overthrow, as we did. The UNLA overthrew. Because there was no other way. In a decree, all other venues are closed, except assassination and overthrow. In the case of
a legal notice,
is being put there legally by people who are sober, who are democratic, and who want to change anyway. So if you overstay in office like President Museveni, Kanyeihmba is asking you to resign now. That's what the legal notice does. It allows you to do that.
If I may ask you again, and this is something that you participated in, when you advised that the President Museveni's tenure be extended a bit so that Uganda could organize and have elections.
Yes.
Does that mean that that is one of the amendments of the legal notice number 1?
Yeah, that could be an amendment, yes. I told you the amendment is requested and approved by the people. So it's a democratic process. So the NRM under Museveni, and you can read the history and you laugh, they had given themselves 2 years only.
Between 1986 to 1988.
Yes, to govern the country. Remember, I joined them later in 86, that year. They took power in 86,
yeah.
But late that year in November, I joined them after he had brought me from Wales to help him. And for me, I thought I was coming to him as a lawyer. So he simply said, no, I want a Minister of Commerce. And he laughed and he said, for the Minister of Commerce, you want a man who is honest, principled, with integrity. And they told me you are one of them. And then he said, therefore, I want you to manage the soul of our economy in this country. That's why
you became Minister for
Yes, I
Commerce.
didn't accept. By the way, all my positions, I was always advised by the president or colleague to accept. I have never applied on my own
or lobbied
for a post or
lobbied
for any post, except applying to become senior lecturer in the University of Wales. I competed against 7 other applicants, all British, and I defeated them, an African.
Okay, so you you advised that the legal notice number 1 be amended.
Yes.
And you added him years instead of retiring.
No, 5 years.
5
Let me
years.
tell you why we did that. You see, we were scientific. So we asked the department, including the police, the army, the economists, how long will it take us to become normal, a normal government?
Yes, go ahead.
And some answered 2 years, others 3 years. The judiciary is still not yet settled. The judiciary answered 6 years. We said this is too long. So what I read in the parliament as the view of the government, and this really we have sorted out.
But
what about here.
You were the same people. Wouldn't you be handing over from a right hand to the left hand because you were the same people? Was there any conflict at the time?
No, President asked.
Was he
asked in the cabinet?
Was he truthful in your view? As of now, having followed his way of doing things, do you think he was indeed truthful?
But that's why I'm writing a book. That later he changed and turned into Tibuhaburwa, which in our language means I don't tolerate advice and we don't need advisors.
Okay.
Forgetting that all the ambassadors, all the ministers, all the economic people are his advisors and he's accepting his advice. So that statement is not by Museveni, it is by Tibuhaburwa.
Okay, so you represented the ideas and suggestions of the rest
No,
of the
I didn't. So President Museveni, I told you, was a Democrat. So he asked the question to all the ministers. Should we hand over now that our time has come? What do you think? So we all said we have not finished the job for which we have absolutely I was one of those. And then he said, you Kanyeihmba, gather the views of all the other ministers. And that's what I was trying to explain to you. When I put it to all the ministers, they gave me written report each. Then I compiled them, what came to be known as the minister, rather Attorney General's statement to Parliament. And that's the one you can get from the archives of the NRM movement, if not party. And my assessment alone as Attorney General was, some want 2 years, 3 years
Judiciary 6.
to finish their business. The judiciary wants 6 years, and we thought that was too long. So I prepared the Minister of Justice, rather the Attorney General's statement. I should have a copy and give it to you now, but it is in the archives there. I didn't keep it. And if you ask the archives of the NRM, they will give it to you. Because it was published in a booklet. And it says the Attorney General's statement in the Parliament. So I reported that in light of what we have received reports from
different
other
ministers,
we need 5 years extension of the NRM. I am the one who requested. We need another 5 extension. And that is what was put in the referendum for the whole people of Uganda. Do you want the NRM to stay, or you want my party to start one? And they overwhelmingly voted no, let the NRM have another 5 years.
Up to 1994, when the Constituency Assembly gathered.
So when the Constituency Assembly gathered, meanwhile, the idea of the Constituent Assembly was of the army. After the legal notice number 1, which we had all approved, well, I hadn't, I wasn't here, I was in the UK, which everybody had approved, we had given the NRM that when they finish, which was 2 years' time, the combination of the NRM council, we had the council, and the UPDF.
NRA at a time.
Yes?
NRA at a time.
NRA
Become
shall make the new constitution for Uganda, combined. And do you know who rejected that? The army itself. The army said no. We are tired of these decrees, few people making our constitution. We want the constitution to be made by all the people of Uganda. That is the army. UPDF now. With the people like Muntu and the late, now late, what is the name, with one who they buried yesterday?
General Elly Tumwine.
General Elly Tumwine. The Tinyefuzas of this world. And the Rwanga of this world, very powerful generals in Ghana, said no.
People should make
we don't want the constitution to be made by a small body, like a combination of us and a
few NRM,
yeah,
NRA
a
people.
few NRM. We want it to be done by all the people of Uganda. So I started thinking, how can we represent the whole of Uganda? Then I got ideas from Seven, from others, and then they said, we shall reduce the size of the constituencies, constituent assembly constituencies to the minimum. so that we have as many delegates
as possible.
as Uganda can find.
Fairly represented.
Yes. So we exaggerated the numbers to go into CA. Instead of representing districts,
You made smaller constituencies.
yes, we represent counties, even Gomborolas, even a small place like Karanga had a delegate.
Weren't you learning from your senior Obote about political gerrymandering, like they call it, get smaller constituencies that will favor you, have ideas that favor you?
No.
Because it had been chosen over the same 1980 election.
Them. I'm appointing you member of parliament. I'm accounting this, governorship, whatever.
So you made
For
so
us,
many
we are only
constituencies
appointing a body
that will
to
be
make
voted.
the law, the constitution. Not to become MPs forever. Not to represent anybody, but to represent the people of Uganda in making the constitution.
So that's when. So
And when they finish, they go.
So we go to the CA delegates. That's 1994. CA
Yes,
delegates
yes.
spent 2 years to organize. Are those the years you were moving around now, getting ideas?
Actually, originally, the government thought it was an easy exercise.
Yeah,
So
sure.
they thought we would do it in six months. Museveni and these people were very wary of staying in office longer than some 2 years. And in the referendum, they were approving something we had suggested, which they didn't like. That is why Tinyefuza, the late Rwanga, General Elly Tumwine, refused to go along with us by saying, we want this constitution to be made truly by the people.
Typical civilians.
Not by the military, not by the politicians here or ministers, but
civilians.
Then I had to think again, who are these civilians? That's why I came with that. Let us divide the current parliamentary constitutions in smaller ones, 1 or 2 or 3, and make Gomborolas also constituency. And then traditionals should be represented, which were represented by Professor Simbambi when it came to elections. And the churches where we had Father Gaithan of Kabal representing
Tibanyenda, is it?
Tibanyenda,
Gaitano.
Yes, we had that one. And political parties, UPC represented somebody from Bugisu, I remember his name, and the Mulenga representing the DP, because he was the vice president of the DP party, and the same Ogerere, Pablo Somwege, its leader. We, the president, nominated them to come to parliament. They were not elected to come and represent those shades of opinion. Then we also said women should be represented very highly. So every district should bring a woman. Then the youth should also be represented. I think 7 or 10 from all shades of opinion. And
that's how the army also
and the women especially. We further said women have been lagging behind ever since Uganda became independent. So we shall give them a step on which to step to politics. So we said every district must have a woman, whether you like it or not. So it was. And then we said that Every district council must have a woman, at least one. Parliament must have so many. Other institutions, whenever they appoint boards, those boards must have women on them. Those were our decisions. What I want to remember, and the Uganda should remember, the army, which is now
UPDF.
independent of the president, rejected our composition that the constitution should be made by two bodies, the Army Council and the National Consultative Council. They rejected it. They said, we want it to be made by the people. So my regret today is their view has been overtaken by the dominance of one man, Museveni.
Okay, we are in this remaining minutes. We want to ask you. That is how you became a representative. You were a CA delegate yourself.
We were yourself. We became delegates as a result of the suggestion of the army. So when they suggested that, we went back to the drawing board and said, who will then represent the people? That's why we said now, multiply the constituencies for the National Council, and also allow women to be represented,
and
the youth to be represented, the disabled to be represented,
the
army to be represented. That way, it will be a fair representation of the population.
In one of our last questions towards the end of this show, Justice Kanyeihmba, is there any idea that you think either was dropped or smuggled in during your constituency assembly and the entire...
Two important provisions we made and debated at length, which the current governance has rejected or ignored. One is, and I wish Betty Kanye was listening to this debate, that the president cannot do anything at all, not whatsoever, unless he's a deviser to do it. It's a very important provision we have.
It was
so dropped. I wrote a book called The Commentaries of Kanyeihmba on Governance, Politics, and Law in Uganda. And immediately after the constitution, I say, nothing can the president, there is nothing the president can do unless he is advised to do so by a constitutional body.
So that was dropped?
That was dropped.
Did you raise any dust?
So many times in my articles.
No? Within your circles, within the CA, before, leave alone the articles, with those people that had dropped it?
He dropped them when I had already retired. Where do I complain?
Don't say Katonda Wange, because he is... but end up saying...
When I retired, he dropped them. I don't think because of me, but I'm sure he knew I would oppose. One time I was opposing on something in the cabinet, and the cabinet minister called Dr. Crispus Chiyonga.
Yeah, from Kasese.
Came to me out, said, George, I want to have a word with you. We went outside the cabinet, we were in the State House. He said, Kanyeihmba, you are very cantankerous. You should criticize the president in front of everybody. That's why he's not happy with me. You ask Chiyonga. Chiyonga is alive. He's our representative in China, yes. But would you believe it? Within no time, he was also sacked.
Yeah. Even when he wasn't cantankerous, like he had done
anything. Yes, he was not cantankerous. He was sacked. And because on the advice of cabinet, he revised the shilling. He devalued it. And there was a lot of criticism. And Museveni diverted attention by sacking him. It was the Minister of Finance who
ill-advised him or
the
others.
country.
The
Not even him, misguided
the last
country.
proposal that was dropped, and then we shall call it a day. That was the first proposal, your idea that was dropped.
So that's one.
The second one.
The other one, this was a personal
Proposal.
understanding. It was not put in writing between me and as Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and advisor to the President. I went to see him in the State House, and he generously gave me refreshments, and we talked for almost 3 hours. And one of the things that we agreed was that it would look bad on the government to simply arrest and detain a minister, a member of parliament, or a permanent secretary without the Attorney General or his senior lawyer, the Attorney General, rather the
Solicitor General?
The Solicitor General, putting in an input and advising the President that what we are doing is right, or what we are doing is not supported by law. So he waited. When I was on an official tour in China,
Arrested
he
Tubo.
arrested Amara Tubo,
Moses Sadi.
Moses Ali, I forget the other one, and he put them in jail. When I returned, I saw it in newspaper. I marched straight away to his house. And I asked him, Mr. President, I'm resigning. Remember what I told me? Never offered to resign unless it had got an effect. Because Ziritua resigned
What was it? Yeah.
from our cabinet. But nothing happened. We even don't know where he is. You must resign because you are going to make an impact. I knew by complaining the reason I resigned. I had an understanding with the President. He should
not arrest anyone besides your inputters.
Of Adi, of Omaro Tubo, who were very powerful ministers from the north.
Yeah.
It would have damaged the government.
Yeah.
That's why I resigned. I knew it would cause
an impact.
So the first thing he said, Kanyeihmba, don't be dramatic. I said, no, I'm not dramatic, I'm being serious. Then he said, okay, I'll do something about it. Only to hear that Moses was released, he was back in his position. I think he was Sadad Deputy Prime Minister
at the time.
and that Omwara had been given a job elsewhere as a cabinet minister. That was the.
So those were the two
the consequence of that was not because I was powerful or whatever, because if I had resigned, President Museveni is clever, he knew it would
more damage.
Almost beyond the repair his government.
Okay, our viewers, with Justice Kanyeihmba, before we close, I want to remind you that we shall be here next week, by God's grace, on Wednesday. Now, he has taken us through the difference between legal notices and decrees. He has taken us through the CA. If there are concerns, you can still inbox them to us. On Wednesday, as we come, we shall begin with the preamble, because you said in the same in the very 1995 Constitution, the other theory, which is as a result of which is believed, which has been followed by so many lawyers, about some case.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the case.
The Kelesian principle.
There is the Ugandan law, the Ugandan case law.
determined the citizen can overthrow the government and carry out a coup. We abolished the coup. In the 1995 Constitution, we abolished the coup, and therefore the creation
theory. So that is the Matovu's ghost, like constitutional law students have always learned that case law from year one. So next week, we are beginning with the preamble now. By God's grace, as we continue having him, we shall begin with the preamble. Go ahead, discuss every article therein, what it means, the powers it gives to citizens, and all of us. May God bless one and bless all.
Thank you very much for listening to us. I look forward to seeing you.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.